Peekaboo Boxing 101. In this video, I'm going to go over the fundamentals of Peekaboo Boxing. Okay, starting off with your basic stance, footwork, head movement, and then each punch and the corresponding target and number of that punch. Now let's begin. We're going to begin with the Peekaboo Boxing fighting stance. Okay, so what you're going to do is stand in a neutral position. If you're right-handed, you're going to take your right hand and just take a half step back. Okay, half step back. So a good rule of thumb is if I take my knee and I go down, and it should be level with my heel. You see that? So I go down, up. Okay, I want to be on the balls of my feet, but my rear foot is slightly raised. Okay, next key point is my hips and my shoulders are more squared off to my opponent. Okay, the reason why is because the Peekaboo Boxing is a forward pressure fighting system. Okay, I'm always taking the fight, going after and pressuring my opponent. So my hips and my shoulders are more squared off to my opponent, which allows me more versatility in my head movement by slipping side to side. If I'm more bladed up, it's hard for me to slip to my left hand or lead hand side. So next point is my knuckles on my hands are on my cheek line, my jawline, right on my cheekbones. Elbows are pulled in and I'm gonna pull my stomach in. So from the side, elbows are pulled in, I'm gonna pull my stomach in. Okay, and then the last point of the Peekaboo Boxing stance is my knees are bent, but they're nice and loose. I'm not like bent way down. Okay, you can't fight squatted down the whole time, not for 3-minute rounds. Okay, so once I get the basic stance down, then I can kind of loosen up, you know, and I get a little more movement, a little more relaxed in my boxing stance. But for the most part, I want to have my hands on my cheekbones, elbows in, protecting myself at all times. The next point I want to make for the Peekaboo Boxing stance is when you're having your elbows in and your hands on your cheekbones, remember you got to pull your stomach down and sink into your hips. That covers your whole body. When your elbows are in tight and your hands are on your face, your stance is your primary defense. Okay, just having my hands on my face and my elbows in will block a lot of punches. So when my hands are up here, my gloves are catching the punches on my face. Okay, and when my elbows are pulled in tight, that's blocking the body shots. Now let's move on to the footwork. From your Peekaboo Boxing stance, okay, the first piece of footwork we're going to go over is advancing or moving forward. Okay, so when I go forward, I'm going to step out with my lead foot, drive off my rear foot, and then do a follow-up step or slide with my rear foot. It's real simple. 1, 2. Do you see that? Okay, so let me go back. So going forward, I'm just going to step, step. Okay, the same thing going to the rear. Now, when I'm going to the rear, I'm going to step with the closest leg, which is my back leg first. Okay, so I'm going to step, step. So going forward, step, step, or step, slide. Okay, or step, slide to the back. Okay, what I don't want to do is bring the rear foot up first and then step. That's a different type of footwork. Okay, but in Peekaboo Boxing, we keep it real simple. Either I go forward or I go back. Okay, now if I make it a more explosive movement, which I call the drive, okay, if I drive forward instead of going step, step, I'm going to drive off that rear foot and then drive in. It's more of a hop, okay, like a forward little hop, step, step. Okay, same thing if I want to go to the rear, I drive off that lead leg and I can do it more explosively. So I can do it as a relaxed motion. You see how relaxed that is? Just a step, step, or I can drive off it. That's more if I'm going to explode in with my head movement or a punch. Okay, so that is going forward and backwards. Now we're going to do the side steps, going to the left or right. So I'm here, let's go to the left-hand side first. Remember, since I'm going left and I'm a right-handed fighter with my left foot forward, if I go left, I'm going to step left. So I step out, and then step again. Step out, step, 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 or I can step, drag, or slide. You see that? Now if I'm going to go to my right hand side, I'm going to step with the right, step, step, or step, slide. Okay, so the rule of thumb is the direction I'm stepping to, the leg closest to that direction moves first. So if I'm going to go to the right hand side, my right leg leaves first. Step, step. Okay, if I go to the left hand side, I'm going to step, step. So that's going forward, backwards, left, and then right. Now let's move on to the next piece of footwork, which is what I call the side step or the leg spring or spring to the side. I call it the leg spring, okay? The spring to the side. So for my peekaboo boxing stance, if I'm going to spring, it's a diagonal step through to either direction. Let's go to the lead hand side first, or the left side. What I'm going to do is push, drive off that rear foot. I'm going to step forward, move my whole body at an angle. So if forward is 12 o'clock, I'm going to spring to either 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock on the clock system. All right, so if I'm facing 12, I'm going to spring to 11. But you see how it's more of a drive, that explosive movement. Imagine my opponent right in front of me, and I spring to the side. Okay, when I land, this foot is up. I'm on the ball of my foot. Why is that? Because there's going to be a weight transfer. This foot's going to drop, and this hip and this foot, I'm going to raise up on this foot in my hip, and I'm going to turn my whole body into my punch. It's what we call loading. I'm loading the punch. Okay, so if I spring to the left, I loaded my left hand side, and I will fire with the left. Same thing with the right hand side. But this time, instead of stepping with the lead foot, I'm going to step with that back leg at a diagonal to, let's say, 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on the clock system. So from my peekaboo stance, I'm going to drive off that rear leg, and you see how I land. That rear foot is up because it's loaded. This right hand now is loaded for that hook, that cross, or that body hook up, whatever punch on your right hand side. So the rule of thumb for the leg springs is if you step left, I fire left. If I step right, I fire right. Doesn't matter if you're orthodox or southpaw. I'll show you. So a quick leg spring. I can spring to the lead hand side, okay, or I can spring to the upper side. You see how it's preloaded, and then I rotate. It's all about power comes from speed plus the transfer of your body weight through the technique. Okay, it's good technique. Exploding your body weight into those punches. Okay, so the next piece of footwork we're going to do is called the twist. Everybody's seen Mike Tyson do the twist. Okay, the twist is a movement for when you get in close to your opponent, you can free up some space to be able to fire your punches. Okay, so from a neutral stance, I'm going to twist 180 degrees all the way to the back, all the way to the left, and I can go to both sides. So when I'm here, make sure you got some good bend in the knees. I twist all the way to the back, twist back, but I land in that crouch position. Okay, now I'm going to go the other way, twist to the back, twist to the back. That's the 180 twist drill. Okay, now is that really practical? No, this is just a training aid to get you used to twisting to the side. Okay, how I use it more is I usually get my head off of my opponent. Remember, I got to be close to my opponent. And when I'm close to my opponent, let's say my opponent's here, if I get my head off to the right hand side, then I twist to that side. So here, then I twist to the side. You can see now I preloaded my left hand. So if I twist to the right hand side, I fire with the left. Okay, same thing on the other side. I get my head off line. You don't always have to get your head off. I could do it from this position here and then twist to my left hand side. Now my right hand is preloaded and I can fire the uppercut, the hook to the body, or hook to the head. So the leg spring gets you to the side of your opponent, where the twist creates space when you're in close to your opponent. Okay, and then you can do combinations. To give you a quick example, I can drive forward, remember the drive forward, spring to the side, and then twist. Okay, let's do the other side. Now I can drive forward, spring to the side, and twist. Okay, so the goal of peekaboo is once I get in on my opponent, I want to get them off to the side. Okay, a lot of times what will happen is I'll work my way in, unload a combination on the inside, then spring to the side and then keep punching, or I'll unload my combination when I'm centered with them, twist to the side to create space and fire my combination. Okay, that's it for footwork. Really simple, fundamental footwork for Peekaboo Boxing. Now just give a quick shout outs to some other various pieces of boxing footwork, okay? So one of the things I like to do, I call it the skip or the boxer bounce. That means I'm getting on the balls of my feet. Remember, just because I'm peekaboo, I'm not walking forward. I'm not like a robot. I can be loose, I'm moving around. See that skipping back and forth on the balls of the feet? It's the boxer bounce. See now I'm moving my head, skipping back and forth, being light and loose on my feet. Okay, that's the boxer bounce. The other piece of, shout out to another piece of footwork is the L step. When I'm here, and I go here, and I step off. Okay, it's almost like a reset. Like I'm sparring my opponent, and I just need a little reset and change the angle. So what the L step does is it changes the angle. Okay, so I'm here, I step back, step off, step forward. Okay, now these ain't really fundamental pieces of footwork for peekaboo. Okay, but it's something, you've seen Mike Tyson do these and other boxers that you can add into your boxing or your peekaboo game. Okay, another shout out is just pivots. Being able to pivot on that lead foot. It doesn't matter which side. Okay, so maybe I come in, use my head movement, my opponent steps to the side, and then I pivot to face my opponent. So I use pivots to turn and face my opponent. Okay, now those are pieces of footwork that's not part of the peekaboo boxing style, but you can add in. Remember, you can add in anything into your own personal boxing game. Okay, so that was footwork. Now let's move on to head movement. Peekaboo boxing head movement is your primary source of defense when you're trying to evade punches coming in, all right? The best way to defend a punch is to make your opponent miss. It takes more energy from your opponent if he's swinging and missing and sets him in a bad position where you can throw your counter punches, okay? But if I'm just letting them hit me in the arms, okay, what that can do is I can feel the blunt impact of those punches, but also it gives him the ability to rebound into other punches where if he swings and misses, it's harder for him to come back to another shot. It's not impossible, but it's just harder and it takes more energy from your opponent. So the first method of head movement for peekaboo boxing is the slip, okay? You're gonna slip to the left, slip to the right. Really simple. The peekaboo boxing slip is generated at the waist, okay? So with your hands on your face, okay, I'm in my peekaboo boxing stance. If I go this way, okay, what I'm gonna do is just direct my head right towards my shoulder and lean to the side, okay? Remember, I'm keeping my chin tucked. I'm not leaving my chin up. I'm here, okay? So I get to the side. All right, now if I go to the right-hand side, same thing, here, okay? A training, well, a little tip, like a pro tip would be, if I slip to the left, I shoot my hips out to the right-hand side. If I slip to the right, okay, I shoot my hips and my butt out to the right, okay? Some people are more flexible at the waistline than others. Okay, so they don't have to shoot their hips out as much. Me being taller, okay, I got longer legs and a shorter torso, I have to kind of shoot my hips out a little bit, just a little bit. Okay, same thing when I bob and weave, I shoot my hips out. Okay, so slip left all the way down, up, slip right. All right, slip. When you're first training this, you want full range of motion. Think about a windshield wiper. That's what you're like. Okay, you're not slipping in, which you can absolutely do. Okay, for the most part, your basic slip is here, up, slip down. Then you can do it in combination, slip, slip. slip, slip, back and forth. This is where you learn this technique on the slip bag. Okay, so first movement is your slips. The second movement is your duck or your bob. Okay, so from your stance, you're gonna bend the knees and just duck down, up and down, just like if you're going underwater. That's why in swimming class back in school, they teach you how to bob. You go down, bob underwater, push your way up to catch air, bob down, it's bobbing. Okay, and this is the bob part of the bob and weave. Bob down. Okay, I'm gonna do it from the side. What you wanna pay attention is, I do bend at the waist. A lot of people try to do straight up and down. Okay, I bend at the waist. Why is that? Because I'm freaking tall. Okay, it's hard for me to bob under a punch when I'm tall, but it can be done. Okay, so what I do is I go relatively straight down, bending the squatting down. I shoot my hip out, my butt out. So when I'm here, I shoot the butt out. As you can see that, I shoot my butt out. Where my head stays up, I keep my eyes on my opponent, but I shoot the butt out and bend the knees. That's the bob or the duck. Okay. Now, the weaving motion is that circular head motion. Okay, so it's easier. First, I'm going to show you out of the slip. Okay, the weave you don't do on its own. The weave you do out of the bob or the slip. So let's do it out of the slip first. Okay, people have an easier time learning the weave out of the slip than the bob. So when I'm here, I slip to the right. What I'm going to do is take my head and make a circular motion. See how this shoulder's here? And then this shoulder comes forward. Why is that? Because I preloaded that rear hand to be able to fire off of that weave. Okay, so I slip and then I weave. Remember, sticking the butt out again, bending at the knees. I am bending over, okay, but I'm keeping my head up and my eyes on my opponent, making sure I keep my hands on my face. I see a lot of people weaving like this and they're gonna run into uppercuts or body shots. Okay, I've done that. So at least this way, I got my guard protecting my chin line, my jawline. Okay, now go to the other side. So I'm gonna slip and weave. Okay, slip and weave. Now the bob part of it is I just go down and under, like a J. Instead of where the slip and weave is like I go here and then I do like a letter U. Okay, where the bob and weave is like a letter J. I just go here, down, and around. Okay, if I bob and weave the other side, I bob down and weave out. Bob down, and usually I do the bob and weave in combination. Okay, so a quick review. Peekaboo head movement, you got your slips side to side. You got your bob. Okay, I got my slip and weaves, and then I got my bob and weave. Okay, that is it for head movement. All right, we're not pulling. Okay, we're not doing crazy stuff, shoulder rolls, that's other stuff. If you want to add that into your boxing game, be my guest. But on this video, I'm just showing strict peekaboo. Peekaboo is a simple boxing system when it comes to number of techniques. Really simple. Okay, now let's move on to punches and the punch numbers and targets. Peekaboo punches and punch numbers. Okay, from the Peekaboo boxing stance, the first punch that I teach everybody is the jab, the lead jab. Obviously, if you're left-handed and you're southpaw, it'll be your right hand. Okay, but if it's just for the sake of the video, I'm just showing orthodox fighting stance. Okay, so when I'm on Peekaboo stance, I'm going to throw that 7, which is the jab, the number 7, which is to the head, preferably right to the nose. All right, I always aim my jab right for the nose. Okay, here, 7, what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist it. Here, remember you're from that squared stance. Twist, I'm going to rotate my shoulder and put my hip into it and snap it at the end. Okay, so I'm here and snap it. See, you got to get in a habit. You got to move your head after your last punch. You're not doing peekaboo boxing if you're not moving your head after your last punch. Okay, so if I just jab, every boxing style has that. But if I jab and then slip afterwards, that's peekaboo. That's what makes it peekaboo. Okay, that's what Customato created, is to be elusive, moving your head after your last punch. So just for the sake of the drill, after every punch I do, I'm going to do that outside slip. Keep it simple. Okay, so number 7, the first punch is the jab. The number 7. Here, I'm going to snap it out. Make sure I exhale when I punch. Move my head. Once I get that down, I'm gonna drive off the rear foot, take that lead step, and throw that number 7, the jab. A lot of people ask me, why is it called a number 7 and not a 1? Well, traditional boxing, the 1, 2, 3 is all the same. The jab, the cross, the lead hook. 1, 2, 3. And then depending on which boxing gym you go to, all the other punches are different numbers. Okay, but Customado created a different number system. So let me give you an example. If I'm in the corner and I have my fighter fighting in the ring, if I call out a 1, 2, 3 and everybody knows the same numbers, my opponent knows what he's going to do. Okay, he knows the 1, 2, 3 could be coming. Now, if I say 7, 2, 5, he's like, what the hell is that? I don't know what that number is. Sure, they can learn it, you know. But still, though, if I'm telling you 7, 7, 8, and your opponent's like, what the F is that? Okay, so that is why the numbers are different. Why would you want the same number system as every other gym? All right, it's stupid. That's why most gyms have different numbers. Usually the 1, 2, 3 is the same, but in Peekaboo Boxing, the 1 is not a 1, it's a 7, and that's that lead jab. Okay, so the number 2 is going to be the right hand to the jawline, okay, to the jaw. Preferably, if you throw the hook, the right hook is to the back of the jawline, right there at the back of the jaw. If I throw that cross, okay, as a number 2, I'm right at the point of the chin to try to bring that chin down. Okay, if I can hit the chin and slam them bones up in the bottom of the skull, base of the skull, it could potentially be a knockout. Okay, so the number 2 has 2 different punches based on how close you are to your opponent. So I'm going to turn to the side. If I'm farther away from my opponent and I throw the number 2, it's going to be the straight right hand. Now the key to the power of the straight right hand is the rotation and pivot of that rear foot. So let me step back a little bit so you can see my foot. So when I'm here, all right, I'm going to rotate my hips, turn my whole body, pivot on that foot and drive my knee down. So when I'm here, and I'm going to snap it back to my face, all right? So I pivot. My whole body pivots in one motion. Pivots, okay? There's 2 ways to do the right hand, the straight right hand. I can drop my weight into it by going down into it, or if I'm down, I can squat up into it. That's why if I slip to the side, I'm going to drive up, but it still pivots and rotates my knee down. So that's the number 2, the straight right hand if I'm farther away. The number 2, if I'm closer, is the right hook. Same body mechanics. So just like I'm going to pivot on that rear foot and snap it, okay, I'm going to drive and pull into that hook. Thumb up. Peekaboo Boxing, you punch, you hook with the thumb up. Not thumb down, thumb up. Rotate. Now, if you like to punch with the thumb down, who gives a crap? If it works for you, use it. But just for the sake of Peekaboo, okay, it's thumb up, okay? So, same thing. I'm going to pivot 2 to the head. Or I can squat down and rise up into the 2. Okay, number 3 is going to be that lead uppercut. Remember, anything on your left-hand side, you're going to have to load it first. What that means is I'm not going to step and just do an uppercut like that. There's no power. So I'm going to load it. So I'm going to load. So I pivot on that rear foot. Then I'm going to drive from the legs up. And I'm going to drive the hips upward into that upward here. So I'm going to load. Poof. And snap the shoulder, okay? Poof, right there. And then get in the habit of moving your head after your last punch. Okay, that's the number 3, lead uppercut. Number 4, rear uppercut. You have to load the uppercut. I'm not gonna fire the uppercut with my head on the center line. I'm gonna load it. I'm gonna get my head off line, load it, and my hand drops down into this little pocket right here. See that little pocket? Drops down, and this hand stays high, and then I explode upward poof, and throw that uppercut to the head. So I'm here, I'm gonna load, poof, and that hip comes up into it, okay? So that's the 3 and the 4. The 5 is the left hook to the body. Same thing, I gotta load it, and I'm gonna explode just like the uppercut and throw that 5 to the liver, okay? Same thing with the 6. I'm gonna load it and throw that hook or that 6 to the spleen, okay? But if I'm farther away and I'm targeting that side of the body where the spleen is, the number 6, I will throw a straight. And when I throw that straight to the body, I drop down into it, okay? So that's the 5, that's the 6. Number 7, we went over the 8, the jab. Number 8 is that body jab to the solar plexus. Okay, so a good way to learn how to practice the body jab is you stand in that neutral position. I'm gonna hop to the side and forward and throw that 8, and I'm gonna get my head offline. Right here. Okay, return home, drop down, head offline, 8 to the solar plexus. Okay, and that's a good way to start it. But as you get better, I can just step in, but I'm gonna get my head offline and throw that 8 to the body. Usually I turn the thumb down when I throw the 8 to the body. That really rotates the shoulder up to protect the face. Okay, so the last one we're gonna do, my favorite punch, the number 1, left hook to the head. Same thing, you gotta load it, and then I'm gonna throw and turn into the number 1, which is the left hook. Okay, and then return home or move my head after my last punch. So here I'm gonna load, thumb up, elbow up, turn into that left hook. I'm gonna pivot. It's not so much pivoting on the foot. I'm putting my hip and twisting putting my body weight into the punch. Okay, so I'm here, I'm gonna load, move my head after my last punch. Maybe I'll slip, mixing my head movement up. I don't wanna get in the habit of always slipping to the same side. If I jab, I'm gonna duck. Jab, I wanna slip. Maybe I jab and I roll or weave. Okay, so just a quick review, peekaboo punches and numbers, okay? 1, left hook to the head, okay? 2, right hook to the jaw, or the straight right to the jaw. 3, left uppercut to under the jaw. 4, right uppercut under the jaw, okay? 5, left hook to the liver. 6, right hook to the spleen, or if I'm farther away, I can throw that straight right to the spleen, okay? And then, what else? 6, 7, jab to the head, and then 8 is that body jab to the solar plexus, okay? Keep in mind, the punch number system Custom Auto developed not only names certain punches, but it's based on targets on the human anatomy, the human body, okay? Like the 7 would be like the nose. The 2 is this side of the jaw. The 3 is this side underneath the jaw. The 4 is this side underneath the jaw. The 1 is the base of the back line of the jaw, okay? The 6 is the spleen. The 5 is the liver. The 8 is the solar plexus. So technically, if I go this way take a right hand to the solar plexus, that's technically an 8. So if I did a double 8, it would be like that. But just to make it easier, when you're coaching and teaching people, I just keep the 6 down here to the spleen, okay? So that is everything covered in Peekaboo Boxing 101. We went over stance, footwork, head movement, and your basic punches and punch numbers, okay? Obviously, one of the biggest rules you want to follow to make it peekaboo is when you throw a combination, you move your head after your last punch. And another thing is your head movement is used to draw your opponent's punches so you can counter punch. It's a very offensive, elusive counter punching boxing system, which takes a lot of discipline because you got to have the technique. You got to do the drills to where you're moving your head without even thinking, okay? And then you got to have the cardio aspect of it, because I'm not just laying back, relaxing, throwing pot shot and moving my head. I am aggressive, trying to be exciting and taking the fight to my opponent. If you get to the point where you get really good at slipping punches, no one will want to spar you anymore. Okay? No one wants to spar you. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I did make other videos that covered these topics, but I wanted to make one video where we can have just basically the fundamentals of peekaboo. Okay, and then out of all these techniques, that's where you build and create your drills. Okay, have a good day.